I was scrolling through YouTube yesterday and I seen Jimbert upload this video right here called "I've Changed My Mind on This Debate." And I was like, all right, I'll probably watch it later. But something specific about this video caught my eye because as I switched over to another app, I seen friend of the show, legend of winning, legend of Wembanyama, tweet this out. The Tim Duncan take that JxmyHighroller just made is one of the worst ones I have heard in years. So apparently, something was said in this video that made legend of Wembanyama say that. And now I'm genuinely curious. So let's see what's going on in this video, bro.
After years of judging, critiquing, hating on some of your hot takes, today, I'm gonna share some of mine.
Okay.
It is only fair, after all, that if I put others' opinions up for debate, contention, ridicule, that I do the same for myself. Because like you, I too am just a guy who has a few takes and opinions that I wouldn't dare say out loud in fear of having my ball knowledge put into question. But today, I'm gonna do just that.
What are your hot takes?
Here are my NBA hot takes.
Yeah. Okay. I like that, man. I like that.
In preparation for this video, I thought about some of the opinions I've had over the years about players, teams, eras, opinions that I know are probably subjective and completely false, but I usually try to stay as objective and non-biased as I can. Do my research, refer to film, gather consensus when necessary.
That's fair.
But in this video, I'm doing none of that, and instead sharing with y'all 5 of my NBA hot takes. All right, so
you know, man, I like that. I like that, man. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you just have a gut feeling about certain takes. And, you know, you just gotta put it out there in the world, you know? You're gonna get hate for your subjective takes anyways. I like this out of you, Jimbert. I like this.
My first hot take is kind of hard to admit. I almost don't even want to say it out loud, but I'm going to. Tim Duncan has become overrated. Now,
I mean, listen. They're hot takes for a reason. They're hot takes for a reason. And if he didn't rile you up at all in this video, then I would argue he did not actually do his job. These are actual hot takes. And if they didn't do that, it would not be a hot take. I like this. Starting off hot. Tim Duncan has become slightly overrated. Now, y'all know my feelings about Tim Duncan. Is it troll or not? We'll find out in this video, but okay.
Before you bring out the torches, hear me out. When Tim Duncan was playing, there were maybe a few seasons throughout his 19-year career where he was considered the best player in the world. No one ever thought he was better than Shaq in his prime. Many fans at the time argued that KG had a higher peak than him, although I would disagree with this. And in the moment, for a good decade or so, you would be in the minority if you thought Tim Duncan was a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant. By the time Duncan retired, he was very underrated. Most fans had him somewhere around 15th, maybe just...
Whoa. Hey, listen, Jimmy isn't really in the NBA Twitter streets like that, but I don't know what conversation he was having where Tim Duncan was 15th.
Just outside the top 10 greatest players of all time. But miraculously, over the past 5 years or so, Timmy has creeped from 15th to 13th to top 10 to where he probably should be, somewhere around 7, to now all the way within people's top 5, even top 3 players ever. And this isn't just a small community of Tim Duncan advocates.
Nah, I completely disagree. Even when Tim Duncan retired, it was, for me, at least in my circles, and maybe this is just your bubble against my bubble, Tim Duncan was always consensus top 10 to me. It was always in that conversation. You know, when we talk about the best player of the 2000s, Tim Duncan was always brought up in those conversations with Shaq, with Kobe. So I genuinely don't see where he's getting the 15-3 jump. Maybe if you want to say, you know, when he retired, a lot of people had him in the 8 to 9 range, and now he's in the top 3 range. I can see you there, but this is a crazy jump. I don't think this jump ever happened.
Kids pushing this propaganda. I'm seeing Duncan floating anywhere from top 5 to top 3 all time for a lot of fans these days.
Okay.
Even people claiming he may just be the greatest basketball player of all time. Guys, Tim Duncan was incredible, the best power forward of all time. He is not one of the 5 greatest players ever, let alone the GOAT.
Why not,
I think
though?
what's probably happening here is younger or maybe newer fans of the NBA are looking at his accolades and accomplishments and comparing them side by side to other greats and saying, wow, this guy really did a lot and his resume is better than just about anyone ever. But if you watched Duncan's career unfold in real time, you would have felt the impact he had on the league and on the Spurs, but you would have also felt the massive role that the Spurs system and Popovich's coaching excellence played on Duncan. He was unbelievably consistent. He was a defensive juggernaut. He was a leader. But Duncan was also the beneficiary of the most competent organization in the league that prioritized team ball and continuity. From Hall of Fame teammates he played with for the majority of his career to all-time great.
Oh, nah, I ain't gonna lie. This is pretty bad. This is pretty bad. For one, let's start off here to just say, and mind you, this is a guy who actually has some notoriety for not liking Tim Duncan. Number one, to say that Tim Duncan in this conversation is just a accolades merchant. The only reason he's being put in these top 5 conversations is because of accolades. In my opinion, is completely false. Even if we look at, I don't know what metric you want to look at. If we want to look at peaks, if we want to look at longevity, if we want to look at accolades, there is nothing about Tim Duncan's career that tells me he does not belong in that conversation. Maybe it's because we're looking at a guy who at his peak never averaged close to 30, and that's what's holding a guy like JxmyHighroller, putting him in these top 5 conversations. But even then, I do think this 2-year stretch right here goes extremely underrated. For one, there is this notion that the Lakers just three-peated, the Pistons beat them, and the rest was history. No, and this is why I call it filler years, because motherfuckers keep forgetting about this year, but it is what it is. That three-peat was not stopped, was not ended by the Detroit Pistons. It was ended by Tim Duncan in 2003. And we're looking at back-to-back seasons right here. 25, 26-year-old Tim Duncan, by the way. Putting up 26, 13, 4 assists, 2.5 blocks. Leading the San Antonio Spurs to 58 wins in this season, and then 60 wins in this season. With 36-year-old David, this is 02, by the way, 36-year-old David Robinson as his second leading scorer. Then we got 32-year-old Steve Smith, and then 19-year-old Tony Parker, and then you got Bruce Bowen. He really did not have that much help. I would even argue that these 2 seasons right here, because we go to 03 and it's pretty similar. The only difference is now you got Steven Jackson, so a little bit more offensive help. Manu Ginobili's on the team, but this is not the Manu that we all know and love. And Tony Parker's stepping up right here. I would argue that these 2 seasons right here are some of the greatest floor-raising seasons of all time, some of the greatest carry job seasons of all time that we just don't talk about because it's Timothy Duncan and he's boring. So we're looking at a peak of a guy who is arguable for the best player in the world. We're looking at a two-way player who is playing defensive caliber defensive player of the year caliber defense on the defensive end, and then on the offensive end in an era where, you know, low post presence, big men were still dominating the league. He was a 26 point per game scorer. He was one of the better passers from that position, and efficiency was never a problem. Getting to the line was never a problem for him. I mean, textbook, just Mr. Fundamental type shit. And he was reliable. 82, 82, 81. Play 69 here, play 66, but 80, 80, 78, 75, 78. Like, Tim Duncan really was that guy. I guess the biggest knock on him is just maintaining that peak for as long as you can, because if you look at MJ, he maintained, you know, that 29, 30 point per game production since his rookie year to 98. So that's a 12-year stretch of him doing that. You look at Kobe. He maintained that from 2001 to 2013, so about the same thing. LeBron has done it for 15 years. I believe Kareem around the same. So I guess the biggest argument for Tim Duncan is just okay, once he reached this echelon, he didn't maintain that peak as long as the other dudes in that top 10. And then this idea that he benefited, the reason why people are overrating him is because he benefited off of this crazy San Antonio Spurs system. I would then argue, who hasn't in the top 10, right? Michael Jordan benefited from a crazy system for 6 years of his career. And let's just keep it a buck, his GOAT argument is defined by that 8-year stretch from 1990 to 1998. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you could say that he benefited tremendously off of this rookie point guard that came into the league when he went to LA, and then the whole system and all of the talent that became the Showtime Lakers. You can say the same thing about Bill Russell. You can say the same thing about Larry Bird. You can say the same thing about, well, I already said Kareem. You can say the same thing about Steph Curry. So I just think that's an unfair criticism to Tim Duncan right there.
That played big roles in helping the Spurs win championships, Duncan was always surrounded by winning culture and winning teammates. This is by no means a knock on him. In fact, he was a big reason why the Spurs were so cohesive. But only in retrospect would you look at his laundry list of accomplishments and neglect all of the details that came with it. For many years, the Spurs as a team and organization were seen as this staple of excellence more than Tim Duncan was as an individual. It wasn't Duncan and the Spurs. It was just the Spurs. They were one and the same, not this pretty good team with a fantastically great player on it. But if you just look at his resume, you wouldn't know that. You could argue Duncan had maybe a top 3 career in NBA history, but as a player, he's just not on the same tier as Jordan or LeBron or Kareem. I don't know how after...
Wait, so I'm confused. So you can argue... Wait. Jimmy already conceded that he can have a top 3 career in NBA history. Boom. So I'm guessing his argument now is peaks. But then I would argue these GOAT conversations, these top 10 all-time lists are based off of what you did throughout your career. I'm confused. I'm genuinely confused.
He retired, he has slowly crept past Shaq and Bird and Russell and even Magic for some people. Duncan is one of my all-time favorite players. But
again, this kind of disproves your main argument. Is in 2016 when he retired, he was not in that 15 range. You're literally posting, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sources, fan consensus sources of top 10 lists. First of all, this dude has Ginobili at 3. Wait, what? Ginobili? I don't. Why is this even? Nevertheless, Jesus Christ. In this, like, Tim Duncan was already in the top 10 in all of these. The worst was 10. And then it did creep up to 4 or 5. So I get there is a creep up. But the backing to that argument, I wholeheartedly disagree with Jimmy. I ain't gonna lie.
He is not a top 5 player in NBA history. And it's odd to see a player who was so underrated for so many years become slightly overrated today. Now, I'd like to think of myself as sort of a board member, an executive within the organization of LeBron fans and Glazers. So this next take pains me to say, but LeBron has sabotaged many good situations throughout his time in the NBA, and his career as a whole has...
He's definitely hot, Jimmy. I like it.
Suffered because of it. We all know that LeBron has been held back by some bad front offices, selfish teammates, terrible roster constructions. But what doesn't get talked about enough is how he has gone out of his way to try to make good situations better and has inadvertently ended up just ruining things for himself in the process. Like in 2014, when he decided to sign with the Cavs instead of staying with the Heat. Why did he do that? Well, we all know why. The Heat were getting old, Wade was past his prime, and the Cavaliers had the cap space and a budding young star in Kyrie Irving to help reel Bron back to Cleveland. This decision eventually led to a championship, but what if he just stayed with the Heat? With Pat Riley and Spoelstra, where there's culture and accountability, I imagine his career would have played out even better considering where the Heat are today. Or what about when the Cavs went to back-to-back finals in 2016 and 2017, but since LeBron didn't feel they had enough to win it all, he orchestrated an entire implosion of their roster, which ended up being vastly worse, and then just left them again once things were beyond repair.
Whoa! Well, first of all, this stretch right here, he didn't want Kyrie to leave. That was like the biggest, you know what I'm saying? Like, Kyrie didn't want to play on the team. And if you want to say that's because of LeBron, then I guess. But once the Kyrie domino fell, everything else fell. I'm looking at the names you got right here. I mean, who are these dudes? This is James Jones, Richard Jefferson, Iman Shumpert. Like, a lot of these dudes over here came from this trade right here, which got them Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, I think Ante Zizic and a couple picks. And then they traded that by the trade deadline because shit wasn't working into this team right here. Now, I will say this. I do think it's kind of... It's not really revisionist history because by the time the playoffs came, we knew what was up. That team was ass. But it is just interesting to me how going into the season, even after the Kyrie trade, people were talking about that 2017-2018 Cavs team as possibly the best team LeBron has played on. And then we find out, boom, they were ass. And then when the trade deadline blow up happens, we have the same conversations again. Is this the best team LeBron has played on? And then by the time the playoffs ended, and in hindsight, it was actually one of the worst teams LeBron played on.
Or most recently, when the Lakers won a championship in 2020, and instead of reloading with the same roster, the Lakers returned with a whole new team just 2 seasons later. These decisions do not happen without LeBron's okay. Throughout his career, he has been so quick to want more, want something better, and he can't wait around for it to happen organically, so he tries to force these things to happen. And when it doesn't work out, which it hasn't worked out a lot, the organization, the coaching staff, and even his own teammates end up taking the fall. As great as he is, LeBron has tried to play GM way too often in his career, and when he can't or he's out of options, he just moves on to the next new shiny thing. If he just stayed with the Heat, or stayed with the Cavs, or allowed rosters to build chemistry and young players to develop naturally over time, I think his career and the perception of it would probably be better right now. LeBron...
I think one move that on the Let's Keep It a Buck podcast we really dove into that we genuinely felt like LeBron might have made a mistake on was just in the first place picking Miami instead of Chicago. If LeBron went to Chicago, they already had Derrick Rose, they already had Joakim Noah. Let's just say Carlos Boozer doesn't go. They had space for 2 of the big 3 to come. Well, not even 2 of the big 3. 2 of LeBron, Wade, Melo, or Bosh to come. Tom Thibodeau still coaches that team. Any combination of D Rose, D Wade, LeBron, Kyle Korver, Joakim, bro, that defense would have been crazy. And when we talk about the longevity of a tenure, having the youngest MVP there, I don't think Derrick Rose plays all of those minutes. And even like the initial situation that happened was such a crazy butterfly effect thing. I think he should have went to Chicago instead of Miami in hindsight, especially if one of those 4 was gonna follow him there anyways. That would have been a crazy scenario. But staying in Miami, I think the assumption that they still get Bam, that they still get Jimmy is kind of a reach in my opinion. But staying in Cleveland to me, I just by 20, because again, that the idea of LeBron staying in Cleveland to me resides on the fact, does Kyrie stay there or not? And Kyrie leaving had nothing to do with LeBron, in my opinion. It had everything to do with what Kyrie wanted in his career at that point. So at that point, Kyrie wants out. Boom. Isaiah Thomas comes in. We find out he's actually injured and he's not the 30-point per game scorer he was the season prior. So now it's just LeBron and K-Love with the Golden State Warriors being the Golden State Warriors, and we don't know when they're breaking up. LeBron is in his prime. He's still trying to chase, trying to beat a GOAT, trying to be all of these things. Why wait? Why waste years of your prime? So I get where he's coming from, but I still disagree with that one.
LeBron has willed his way to some of the greatest feats the sport has ever seen, but he has also sabotaged a lot of good things along the way. Now, here's a hot take for you, and I don't care if I'm wrong. The corner three is not the easiest three-point shot. For years, everyone has said the corner three is easier than any three-pointer, and so there's an advantage to be had there if you use them right. I wholeheartedly disagree. In the NBA, sure, the corner three is shorter than on the wing or at the top of the key, but if you play ball, you know this shot is as scuffed as it gets. When you're looking at the hoop straight on, you just have a wider margin of error. You can shoot long and bank it in. You have a better perception of depth since you're looking at the backboard. It may just be psychological, but whatever it is, you cannot convince me that this shot is easier than this shot. According to NBA.com, this season the league as a whole is shooting 39% from corner threes, whereas above the break, teams are shooting 36.1% on average. Now, that's...
I would like to hear the explanation, but if on average, people are... I might need to listen back, but if the argument is this is the most valuable shot, the easiest shot, and there's a stat out there that says, yeah, majority of NBA shooters do shoot at a higher percentage here. And this is also valued as much as another shot where people shoot 36%.
That's a substantial difference in efficiency from these two different shooting zones. And it would lead you to believe the corner three is easier. But I think shooting percentage is higher on corner threes than threes above the break for two reasons.
Okay.
One, the best shooters in the league, the guys who are on NBA rosters to drill a few threes a game, usually spend the most time in the corner. And since most players who set up shop in the corner are sharpshooters, the overall efficiency from corner threes is boosted compared to on the wing or at the top of the key. And reason number two, a lot of threes taken above the break are pulled up off of dribbles, players flying off of screens trying to square up and get a good shot off. And many times the players attempting these kinds of threes are the best player on their team, but not the best shooters. On the other hand, corner threes are almost exclusively set shots coming off of passes to a wide open man. The very nature of offenses in the NBA makes these corner threes easier than any other threes because plays are often drawn up to get open looks from here from the best shooters in the world shooting set shots with no one contesting. Corner threes, especially those real deep ones where you feel like you're behind the backboard, are not easier than any other three-pointer.
I'm not gonna lie though, and this is such a... Bro, when I used to play basketball a lot, there was a point in time where and this is just pickup basketball shit, so it's not serious basketball. There was a point in time where I was looking like PJ Tucker out there, dog. Like once you got me in that corner three, all right, check ball. Like it was crazy. And shout out to my guy Timur, because hey, that's my point guard right there, man. You know what I'm saying? We used to be really still are Celtics fans. He used to be my Rondo to my Ray Allen. And I really loved Ray Allen growing up. So that corner three, bro, I mastered that shit. And there was a point in time where I was straight money from the corner. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's how I don't really have much pushback on that.
Now, I know I'm going to catch some flack for this next take, and that's okay. Because in a redraft of every player in NBA history just after their rookie season, I would pick Victor Wembanyama first overall. You might say this is just recency bias.
Season?
You may think I'm crazy, and you're probably right. But Wemby would be my first pick. His progression, his poise, his confidence, his skill set, his potential. If you lined up every great player since the inception of the NBA, and if we're just going off of what we've seen from them in their rookie season, I would pick the kid in San Antonio.
I think he's up there. I do think it's not just what he did in his rookie season. It's the combination that he did this in his rookie season as a 20-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Because I do think this is not the greatest rookie season ever, right? If we're just looking at this is your first year in the league, who produced at a higher level in their first year in the league? I do think David Robinson had a better rookie season. And I understand he did play more minutes, but listen, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. His rookie season puts up 24 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks. And I believe Tim Duncan even had a better rookie season. Tim Duncan, his rookie season, 21, 12, 2.5, 55% from the field. You can still argue Tim Duncan. It's the combination that Victor Wembanyama is doing this in his rookie season at age 20. Now, in terms of just age 20 seasons, that does get interesting to me because then we would have to throw a LeBron James in there, who in his age 20 season was putting up 27 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. Age 20 season, we would have to look at Luka. Putting up 29 points, 9 assists, 9 rebounds. So it's an interesting. I would still say he's up there. And if we're looking at potential as well, I mean, the potential with Vic is just sky high. You know what I'm saying? There is no limit to it, in my opinion. But
now, my answer may be different if I were to pick anyone before they played in an NBA game. Maybe it's LeBron or Kareem. But based on what we know so far, give me the 7'4" alien. Wemby can do everything on the court. He's got the offensive skills, the defensive ability, and willingness. From what has been said about him, he is like a sponge with information. He's learning exceptionally fast on the court. And I think what's just as impressive as his physical tools, the kid is not afraid of the moment. He isn't timid, he can talk trash and take it too.
Oh wait, I might have to retract my statement about Luka, because I think Luka was already 20 going into his second year. Victor Wembanyama is finishing the season at 20. I might retract my Luka take. I'm not sure, y'all.
He's got heart, and you can tell he really loves the game. Now, I think some players who are up there with him for the first overall pick in a redraft post-rookie season might be Shaq, Kareem, MJ. Duncan was incredible as a rookie, maybe Hakeem. Overall, their numbers are about equally as impressive. But the thing that stands out about Victor is that he's doing this at 19, 20 years old on a minutes restriction. He's already an elite two-way player, possibly even the best defensive player in the entire league. And he has the advantage of playing in an era where he is allowed to develop a well-rounded offensive game from the post all the way out to the perimeter. Something
I also think, and I'm going to be honest, this is probably the one take I agree with Jimmy, is I think the biggest reservations when it comes to this take is the fact that we know what Shaq becomes. We know what Michael Jordan becomes. We know what Tim Duncan becomes. We know what a LeBron becomes. We know what a Hakeem becomes. But if we just look at their straight rookie season, you don't got any view of the future. When there's a 7'4" dude at 20 years old, averaging 21, 11, and 3 blocks a game with 4 assists and a steal, on 27 minutes of play, he's 7'4", can stretch the floor, can obviously be a paint presence, can even pass and play make a little bit. I don't know how you say anyone but Vic. Low key.
Thing that Shaq, Hakeem, and Kareem never had. The improvements he's made from his first game this season to now are already so massive that his progress alone really makes him stand out even amongst the greatest rookies ever. And quite frankly, I never witnessed these other players play in their rookie seasons. I wasn't there to see it in real time. And of all the rookies I have seen over the last 15 years or so, Wembanyama is way ahead of all of them. Is this a terrible argument to make here? Sure. Does that change my pick? No. If you can ignore what we know about these players outside of their first season in the league, and if you had to choose one of them, I think Wemby would go first overall. At least for me, he would. By the time these other players came into the league, they were already relatively polished. Jordan was still pretty raw, and LeBron was playing off of sheer athleticism. But Wemby is having one of the greatest rookie seasons ever, and just by watching him, you can tell he's still just learning how to play in the NBA. So not only is he already incredible, he's just barely scratching the surface of his potential. Now, can this take come back to bite me in the ass?
Absolutely.
It sure can.
Absolutely.
But I don't care. If I could choose any player in NBA history based off of their rookie season and their potential and trajectory, I'm picking Victor Wembanyama. Now, I don't know if this last take is even a hot one anymore, but it needs to be said. The 2017 Warriors are by far the best NBA team ever.
Not a hot take.
Not just the best team assembled, not the best team on paper. They are, by a pretty wide margin, the best, most cohesive team in NBA history. Over the years, people will argue that the 96 Bulls were better, or the 2000 Lakers, or if they're really out of their mind, they'll say the 86 Celtics. But no, the 2017 Warriors would dog walk any team you put in front of them. They were so...
I was never around for those 90s Bulls teams, those early 2000s Lakers teams, but I've never seen a team put together where it felt like as a collective, let's just skip to the end. I've never felt that from any team outside of the 2017, 2018, and 2019 Warriors. Someone even made the case that, like, the reason why we don't care about the regular season as much as we did in the past is because of this team right here. Is because for a 3-year stretch, hell, you can even count 2016, just that whole 2015 or 2019 run, we knew what the ending of the season was going to be. The regular season did not matter because by the playoffs, you had to go through the Warriors. The first round didn't matter because at some point you have to run through the Warriors. You know what I'm saying? In the East, you making it to the playoffs is cool until you run into LeBron. That shit don't matter. Let's just skip to the end. I've never had that feeling before. And I don't think a lot of NBA fans had, even, you know, in the peak of Jordan's dominance. When Shaq and Kobe was peaking as well. You just didn't have that feeling. At least in my opinion. But
so good that it pissed people off. They were so good that everyone unanimously agreed
maybe
that it wasn't
the 08
even
Celtics.
Fair. It's been long enough now that the painful hopelessness that this team inflicted upon NBA fans around the world has subsided. But I'm sure we can all still remember just how overwhelming this team was. They made really good teams look incompetent. I mean, they had everything. Arguably the greatest player in the world at the time, the greatest shooter ever at the peak of his powers, the most versatile defender in the league, arguably the second greatest shooter ever, and somehow still managed to have a very solid, well-rounded bench. And not only did they have the most talent, but all of that talent worked really well together.
Yeah.
All of their...
I would even argue that 2017 Cavs team specifically, if that team in any other year wins a championship, that's one of the most talented teams of all time. And you know, just period point blank, that 2017 Cavs team is one of the most talented teams of all time. And they got dwarfed by the 2017 Warriors. We do not talk about that 2017 Cavs team enough because by that finals time, the 2017 Warriors cooked them, fried them. I don't think I can point to any other team. And you would literally have to go back to when Will Elgin and Jerry were together in the 70s to go back to a finals losing team that talented that doesn't get the recognition that they deserve type shit. Like, that team is crazy. That wasn't like crazy injured. You know what I'm saying? Because you can argue 2019 Golden State, right? Because of the Clay and KD injuries. But
their skill sets and intentions meshed about as well as a team could. So not only were they the most loaded team in NBA history, they all bought in, and they all just wanted to win. So I not only think they're the best team ever, I don't even think it's close. Pick any other team to go against them, specifically the 2017 version of the Warriors, and the opposing team would be lucky to sneak 1, maybe 2 wins and a 7-game series. And those are 5 of my NBA hot takes. Hopefully I didn't alienate every NBA fan throughout this process. I just think it's only fair that after sitting on my high horse and judging everyone else's takes, I share a few of my own. So please go easy on me. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Corner 3 suck. And as always, until next time.
Hey man, listen, Jimmy did his job. Those were definitely, aside from the last one, those are all definitely hot takes. I definitely disagree with a decent amount of them. But I think that's a sign that he is, again, doing his job. You know, everyone has, everyone has their perspective. Jimmy High Rollers is definitely necessary. I just disagree with them. That is all. With that being said, yo, check out this video in the description. Links to everything will be down below. And I'm out, man. Peace.